If there's one person that's seen the growth of the forestry industry in Nova Scotia over the past decade and seen it from several different angles, it's Allan Eddy. He's currently the business development manager for Port Hawkesbury Paper's mill in Point Tupper. But previously he served as a deputy minister for the Department of Natural Resources, now known as the Department of Lands and Forestry. With this in mind, Richmond Municipal Council invited Eddy to speak at their recent Committee of the Whole meeting to give some insight on the history of Port Hawkesbury Paper in this area and to talk a little bit about what the mill is looking at for the future. Here's that presentation by Allan Eddy right now.
I think when you see this first slide and you look at the bottom, and strong community is probably, as municipal leaders, what you're most interested in. And as a company, we kind of see the recipe that gets us to those strong communities as it starts right at the base level, which is a diverse ecology. We as a company are very proud of the responsible forestry that we undertake to maintain that diverse ecology. And of course, we believe that that's the underpinnings of our business, which leads to the healthy economy. And if you can put those three things together, you're a long way down the road towards strong communities. That's actually on your screen is a quote, and I should have attributed it to Ron Stern, who, as you all know, is one of our owners. And I guess it's worth reading out for folks at home. We are on a mission to make Port Hawkesbury Paper the highest quality and most competitive producer of supercalendered paper in North America, while at the same time being a great place to work, environmentally responsible, and a strong contributor to the province of Nova Scotia. We're in our 9th year of operation now as Port Hawkesbury Paper, and we wanted to, just before Christmas, we had sent this out to folks, and Amanda was very gracious and said it would be a good thing to come and talk to it directly to council. Very pleased to do that because we're very proud of what the company has contributed to this point and what we think is the future going forward. So I'm sure most of you in this room in 2012 were very attuned to what was going on at the mill and do it. I can share with you that at that time I was employed with the government of Nova Scotia, and I lived through all three versions of the deal that finally came to be. I remember particularly being in the Premier's office on an all-night session when the first time it got done, and then we all know that there were some challenges with that. And I remember very well waking up at about 6:30 on a Saturday morning, having been told the day before that that was it, the deal was done, and looking at my BlackBerry only to see a request for information. What's that all about? And so that began a very feverish day, and again, I know that culminated that evening with the announcement that the deal had been done and that Port Hawkesbury Paper would be restarting. And the reason that was possible, I know from a lot of both, the owner's perspective and their interest in the company, and also the government's support of it, was the state-of-the-art technology that facility represents. That was what really had everybody's interest at the time, and that's been the key to making it. That and the strength of the people. And I think that's a tribute to Richmond County and to the surrounding counties in eastern Nova Scotia. It's the people that make that business. So in 2013, I know when the deal was signed, there were a lot of skeptics and people feeling, oh, well, this is just another one of these Nova Scotia stories. Somebody comes to town, convinces the government to put a lot of money on the table, and then they'll pack up and run just as soon as they'll take what they can and run. And of course, 2013, I think the company very quickly set about addressing those issues with the kinds of actions that you see there. $5 million to optimize the wood processing process, $400,000 in technology upgrades, working on, at the time, which was a significant issue coming out of the natural resource strategy, was around clear cutting and modifying our forestry practices. All of that to begin to give confidence to the people of Nova Scotia, and certainly eastern Nova Scotia, that Port Hawkesbury Paper was serious and was here to stay. In 2014, again, just a sign of the strength of the commitment of Stern Partners, capital investments in excess of $15 million. All of those significant in terms of generating employment in eastern Nova Scotia. And the other piece is, and I guess as municipal leaders, at the end of the day, this is a piece that interests most people in politics, and that's, well, what's the tax revenues? Because we know that, you know, much as it's in taxes and one other thing are an inevitability of life, it is what makes the, you know, so many things possible. And so in 2014, just 2 years after starting, we saw tax revenues of all types amount to $23 million annually, a very significant contribution. And economic studies at the time estimated 1,000 full-time equivalent jobs in both the mill and woodlands, providing about 24 million in direct labor income. So there's that piece that accrues to the public purse, which is of course very important, but there's also that piece that drives the local economy in terms of direct funds that are being poured in through the labor income. I said at the beginning we're very proud of the responsible forestry practices our company has, and of course the mill, through previous owners, I think has a long-standing reputation from its Scandinavian roots for the type of forestry that's been practiced, leading-edge stuff. And of course, part of the agreement with the province was that we would seek third-party certifications, and in 2015 we reached those certifications. And of course, one of the reasons that happened in 2015 and not 2013 is it takes time for those things. You have to have a bit of a track record for them to assess. And at that time, we had 3 separate certifications for the forestry stewardship, and which is probably more of a European standard, although here in North America, also SFI and the PFC chain of custody systems, all of which collectively give people from some confidence. It's not just what Port Hawkesbury Paper says, well, aren't we wonderful people and we're doing a great job. These are third-party experts whose job it is. They have no dog in the fight, if you will. Theirs is just to say, these are the standards, are they being met? And we have, since that time, successfully maintained all of those certifications. Another piece that I think that's very important is the focus on opportunities for employment and partnerships, as well as research and innovation projects with local universities. I think, you know, probably in the last few years, you couldn't have a conversation in government without the word innovation being there somewhere. And if you did, it didn't last very long. It is a key focus, continues to be. It means different things to different people. But again, I said early on that the success of the business is largely due to the quality of the people that come from this region and support us both directly in the business and as our supply chain. And of course, some of that is that innovative thinking and approaches that have new solutions to old problems and new ways of doing things. Very important to any business to prosper in today's world. And of course, as I said, there's lots of different kinds of innovation. There's business system innovation, there's technology innovation, there's product innovation, just to name 3. And the company has been very active in all 3 of those. In fact, they basically redid the product line since it's been reopened, and we have 2 or 3 products that are unique in the marketplace. So what's next on that journey? We said we were looking to be a great place to work. Industrial safety is a huge focus for any successful operation, and of course in 2016 we achieved 1,500 days of operating with no lost time accidents. And then, for those of you that have been to the mill and have some concept of the size and complexity of that operation, that was a very, very significant achievement. Employee absenteeism below the national average, less than 2%. Again, I think that speaks to the fact that most people see it as a great place to work. Again, very conscious of our place in the province and here in Cape Breton and Unama'ki, and having signed a 5-year management agreement with the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq, and then subsequently with the Unama'ki Institute, a Resource Institute, were very important milestones, and we continue to work very closely with those relations. And again, did I mention taxes? It continued to grow, and we're generating more than $24 million in annual tax revenue for the province and the people of Nova Scotia. 2017, 5 years, way past what a lot of people thought the thing was going to do. Continuing now to really look at how do we partner with our local universities to go beyond the core business, which is the paper business, and of course many of you knew my predecessor, Mark Dubé, who worked very hard in this front, and I have done my best to sort of pick up the flag that Mark, and the trails that Mark had blazed, and we continue to look at some significant opportunities to bring more employment and economic development to the area. COVID, like everyone else, it's put a bit of a freeze on some things, but we're quite hopeful that this year we'll see some exciting developments that we'll be able to share with you at the appropriate time. Again, something that we were quite proud of there is the fact that it wasn't, again, just us feeling good about ourselves, that obviously the story was getting out and other Nova Scotians were recognizing that PHP was an important contributor to both the Strait area and the general provincial economy. And I guess that's part of the reason why we do want to celebrate, is because we want, continued success relies on the support of our communities and our partners, and so I think it's important that people hear what has happened and see the potential for what can happen. An important piece in 2018 is that if you do the math on those kinds of taxes, and you realize that the provincial contribution, which was somewhere in the order of, depending on how you do the math, in the 120 to 125 million dollars was committed, at that point, 2018 would have all been paid back, and going forward, all those tax revenues now occur. The investment has been repaid. In 6 years, which is pretty good return on investment in most areas, and from there forward, those taxes all accrue directly to the benefit of the communities, provincially and municipal, and to some extent federal. I spoke earlier about innovation and new approaches to new things. This is a little bit of an inside baseball story. You say, who cares about kraft pulp? Again, for those of you that have been to the mill or have heard the stories, you know that one of the things that is referenced often is what a high productivity mill that is. And basically you have a sheet of paper that's almost 10 meters wide. The actual path through the machine is almost 400 meters by the time it goes up and down through all the rolls, and it's doing that at basically 100 kilometers an hour. And that goes on almost 24/7, 365. So the strength of that is very important. And the strength comes from the fibers the pulp fibers. And one of the things that most of the world that have a similar process to us, which is TMP or thermomechanical pulp, they always introduced a certain amount of kraft pulp into that process, and the reason for that kraft pulp was to provide strength to the sheet, so that in fact it could operate like that. The nature of kraft pulp is such that compared to thermomechanical pulp, it takes twice as many trees to make the same amount of pulp. And the reason for that is that wood has sort of three fundamental components: water, obviously, like every living thing that when it comes to wood, and then it's cellulose and lignin. In the case of kraft, what happens is they separate the cellulose and the lignin, and they only use the cellulose component, which is roughly 50% of the wood. So you can see why that takes twice as much. If you're using twice as much wood, stands to reason that it's a little bit more expensive. Kraft pulp is a little bit more expensive from an input perspective. But it does have a significantly higher impact because it takes more trees to do. And so one of the things that the company was very focused on was reducing that amount of kraft in our process, both because it was a competitive advantage, from a cost perspective. When you're in a very tough market, you have to do everything you can, but it also really has an impact on our footprint, environmental footprint. And so in 2019, we were successful in eliminating the kraft pulp, and now Our paper is made 100% of the pulp that is produced right there at the plant in Point Tupper, and so that's both reduced our costs and reduced our environmental input. And we are virtually the only that we're aware of, certainly the only ones in North America, and we believe the only ones in the world that have accomplished this feat. So when we talk about the quality of people and the innovation that's gone on at that mill, that's a classic example of it. In 2020, we became one of the top 3 Nova Scotia-based exporters shipping through the Port of Halifax. We've developed a flexible power arrangement, and again, all of you that have been close to the mill story know that one of the key things about TMP pulp is that it takes a huge amount of power. It substitutes mechanical force for the chemical breakdown that's involved in a craft process. To the point that we are roughly 10% of electric demand in Nova Scotia. So anything that can be done to adjust that either demand or the cost of that is a significant issue to the business. It also represented a tremendous opportunity to the utility, because as we move to green power, one of the challenges with wind is how do you balance that on the grid, because you can't store wind. So if you have something that you can use to change your demand up and down, it allows you to use more of that wind when it's available, or to reduce the amount of coal that needs to be dispatched. And so last year, well actually I guess, yeah, just a year ago in January, the new rate was approved through the Utility and Review Board. It's unique again in North America, and it provides benefits to the rate base in general, so to each of us as citizens of Nova Scotia, because virtually all of us use power from Nova Scotia Power, with the exception of a few smaller municipal utilities. It provides benefits to Nova Scotia Power itself, and benefits to our company in terms of sharing the savings that are possible by being able to shift the load around by the utility. So again, another example of how important innovation is to the success of Port Hawkesbury Paper at all levels, whether it's technology, whether it's process, or whether it's business systems. And I guess the last bullet there is just, again, is while I was emphasizing the tax story there simply because, again, wanted the big build up to the fact that, it has been, we feel, a very good investment, both as a company and as a province, and we hope that you feel that as a municipality, that it's benefited you. But there you see it, 1.4 billion, that's with a B. That's a pretty significant level of economic activity. That's since the facility opened in 2012 as Port Hawkesbury Paper, and that's not including the employee wages. So, when we say that we believe we're a significant economic engine for Eastern Nova Scotia, and particularly the Strait region, I think a figure like that lends credence to that statement. So again, we're very pleased to have celebrated that 8 years of success, and it says "and counting" because we certainly see looking forward to the future. I guess the other thing that we saw just in 2020, bleeding into 2021, was once again the opportunity to contribute to the Strait Regional Hospital and to the community. Under previous ownership, the employees at the mill were very pleased to be part of the funding drive that helped establish the hospital the first time around. And as a company, we were very, very pleased to be able to be part of it, once again, the most recent fundraising drive.